Good morning, Discovery. So good to see you again today. And we've been in a series called Slow Down Silly. And last week I said it was the last time that I would be speaking on this topic and that we were going to have a group of people talking about slowing down. And today we are so excited that we just get to have a conversation with some of our Discovery family members from all stages of life, just talking about the need to slow down, the things that challenge us to slow down, the impact that slowing down has. But the question that we want to start with is this. Does anybody ever find it easy just to be busy? Does anybody just find like that's our common denominators? It's like, yeah, how you doing? Busy. How you doing? Busy. What are you doing? I don't know. I'm just busy. Anybody ever find that?
Yeah, life sometimes tends to just get off the rails. Like it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and all of a sudden you look around and it's like, yeah, I'm busy. But why?
Yeah. Anybody else find that like life just sometimes has a tendency to get away from us?
I feel like you can fill up your days with things to do really quickly. Like if you're like, oh, I got this to do, I got this to do, I got this to do, even though you feel like you can still take some time for yourself, I feel like most people in the back of their minds are like, oh, I got to get things done. Yeah. And that's how your day fills up, even though if it's a small little thing, right?
Yeah, there was a sermon that I was working on that I was like, do I put it in? Do I take it out? And I didn't put it in, but I have it for another time. It's like the power of saying no. Right, it's like our go-to, probably in our culture, is like, yes. That the power of saying no is something as well.
There was a preacher down south. I'm from the States, and there was a preacher down south that attended my church, and she imparted something to our congregation that was, I've taken it with me since. No is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And that comes up very often in our marriage as just things start going off the rails. No. I don't have to give you a reason. Well, she gets a reason.
Yeah. She gets a reason.
When those invites start coming in, or those people requesting us to do things, I don't have to give you a reason why. Out of respect, sometimes I might if it's a person of authority, but just no is a complete sentence.
Yeah, it's almost like we feel like we got to justify why we're saying no, and the justifying could be staying home.
I think it is often an identity thing. Like I know for me it was, if I wasn't busy, then like subconsciously, just through culture, I sort of thought that I wasn't doing enough, I'm not enough, and it's crazy how fast you go off the rails. But there's always something to fill your day, and I think that just, once I started, I'm still learning obviously, but trying to be intentional about what I do with my time, I've been opening up spaces and just trying not to be anxious about those spaces being open, because when I leave those open spaces, usually it's filled by something that's more valuable. So that's something that's helped me.
Yeah, you've actually helped me a ton in navigating this, and it's been super fun to hang out. And we've been like mountain biking and stuff, and just talking through some of this stuff. That you've helped me navigate some of this stuff slowing down. Actually, I think the person that probably mentioned John Mark Comer to me the very first time was you. So if you like this series, it's Jackson's fault. If you don't like this series, it's my fault.
Bridgetown
okay.
Church.
What was that?
Discovery.
What was that?
It's like go follow Bridgetown Church on podcast.
Bridgetown Church is amazing. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like as you were speaking, it's almost like it's the societal norm, or like the default is this fast pace. And so if we're going to slow down at all, it has to be intentional. Otherwise,
it's not just going to happen.
No, it's not just going to happen. Like I love being productive. I love getting through a list. I love having just a good day working through things. So like I can literally power through the whole day nonstop, forget to eat, which then ends, the mess that I'm in if I don't eat, like headaches, and like it's just not good when you're powering through like that. But it's our default, right? So it has to be intentional if we're gonna slow down.
Yeah.
Well, when the series first started, Slow Down Silly, right? So you're almost saying, wait a minute, that's almost foolish activity to be going flat out, right? And so if I'm, and you have that one illustration, what would Jesus be saying to you? And just, he'd come up to you and just kind of put his arm around you and just kind of, hey, slow down, silly, you know? Yeah. And it really caught me when I started thinking about that illustration and the slowing down. And then in the logo, you got the road runner doing, going.
By the way, Kyra actually designed that, so it's amazing.
So it's, and that goes back to my childhood, the Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner, and that whole kind of thing. And but always top speed, always driven, always moving, and little flames and smoke coming off his little legs as he's going so fast. And so as I would think of this illustration of what this actually means, it kind of grabbed me in the sense that even now with this season COVID, it has disrupted my routine. So if I was balanced, let's say balanced before and had a routine and was, had things going in stages and at a mediocre or medium type of speed, then things have sped up since this. And it's like getting on a runaway freight train.
Yeah.
Right?
Because everything is uncertain.
Well, it's uncertain, and then you're compensating here for that. You're going over there, and then this opportunity dries up, another one opens up, and pretty soon your whole life cycle of what you've been doing is completely tipped over upside down. You have to reestablish.
Sure.
So I find it interesting that that's when the series came.
I know. Yeah.
Is at that time, because now we're on a trajectory to become more, quote, busy.
Yeah.
Just because of the way things are. And I think it's good. It's like pulling back on the reins a little bit. Hey.
And it's true. There is that tension, right? Like it's like driving a horse. Like you were saying, like we have to be intentional to slow it down.
Yeah.
And because what happens when we start hurrying? What goes? First is our relationship with God. And then lots of times is a relationship with others. And if we're in a marriage relationship, lots of times it's like, well, sure, we'll watch a movie, but we're less intentional when we're not Sabbathing or we're not having silence and solitude. I know my day doesn't get off on the good start when I don't take at least some time to be like, okay, Jesus, welcome the Holy Spirit into it, right? Yeah. Anybody else have like those moments where it's like, why is my day so off? Wait now. Did I have my time with Jesus yet today? Jesus and coffee. I don't drink coffee, but you do.
Oh, I'm a Jesus and coffee girl over here. No, if I, the last year and a half has been something that I've implemented I don't do it all the time because sometimes if I sleep through my alarm, but I know the difference in my day if I decide to just take the extra few minutes to sleep rather than get my butt out of bed and sit in that chair with a devotion or scripture or just a minute of quiet, just to kind of set the pace for the day and like welcome Jesus into whatever it is that I might be walking into or facing or like your own thoughts even. Like you just need a minute to kind of filter through like, well, what have I been experiencing this week? What is it that I'm being challenged to do this week? Because if I get up and just go on about my day, get my breakfast and take off to work or drop off the kids, whatever needs to happen, if you rush right to that, there's literally no space made for him to speak. I know he can, but I'm not giving intentional space for him to speak and to kind of like help me filter through the yuck that sometimes comes. So Jesus and coffee, I like that. But I do, like, I know how much, like, I'm more settled, more grounded in my day, which,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I even can, make a tithing comparison, but it's like when you give first, right? It's like you're setting up, God, like, here's my day. Whatever's coming down the pipe, whatever's coming at me, you already know that it's happening. And sometimes it's just realigning. So those silence and solitude. So there was 3 like spiritual disciplines that we kind of shared about. What? Sharon was about to say something. Do it.
I was
There's going to be a story that we're going to share in a little bit about that we talked about before we started recording that you're going to laugh at.
I was actually going to second Shauna-Lee's point about, spending time with God first. I'm not a morning person. I know my job requires me to be a morning person, but
Wouldn't she just be the funnest teacher ever?
there's a lot of fun in my classroom. There's also a lot of hard work, but it's funny because I'm not a morning person. I tell the kids the first 15 minutes of the day is actually silent reading time. So that way they're all coming in, they're getting their minds focused, they're getting their, just easing through the day before we start our heavy stuff. And they seem to like it better. I like it better, but I still remember I was learn after we went through this series of tithing. God was like, okay, you're giving me your first 10% of your income. How about giving me your first 10% of your day?
Wow.
So I went from not being a morning person to oh, I'm going to give my first 10% of my day to Jesus. Not that you can't spend any time with Jesus, but this is like you said, intentionally spending time with Jesus. And I've realized that it's made me more patient with students that little things, because there's 50 different things that go on in a classroom. And it's allowed me to deal with things way more patiently. It gives me a presence, a peace of mind. But also, if things don't go my way, which it's a common occurrence, I don't get easily stressed out because I know at the end of the day, God's got this. And that's a good, healthy reminder at the start of the day, and even just asking the Holy Spirit to take control of my day makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah. You were saying that you encourage your kids, when everybody comes in, it's we're going to take some time. Silence and solitude, I know, is a biblical concept, but it's also you just taught on it or just touched on. It's this is actually helping my kids. That we're not sitting down and reading Bible. It's some things you can't do in a public school system. But it's kind of no, we're going to refocus our day on what's coming up. So in some ways, silence and solitude is not just good spiritual practice. It's a good human practice to be okay, I just need to be quiet. But in our world right now, what's the first thing we reach for when we're quiet? Right? That's not quiet. That's the noisiest thing on earth, right? It might be quiet in the room, but there's so much noise.
Well, no, Sharon was just speaking then. I was just thinking how when we take the first part of our mornings, you said, it has taught me to be more patient. And so for me, I know that in the last month or so, what my eyes have been drawn to in my day has been, what are the small things I'm most grateful for? Right? So I find that when you set your day up in the right way, you're meeting with Jesus, you're having those conversations, you're just silencing yourself, whatever those moments, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever you have allowed in your schedule. Has anyone else here implemented that and found there's certain things that they've been taught? So for Sharon, it's patience. For me, it's been diving into gratefulness. Has anyone else experienced that?
I know what you're talking about. If your day is coming in strong and you've got a lot of stuff to do and you're going to be busy, but if you give that to God, say, I'm laying this day before your feet. Somehow he sort of organizes it.
Sure.
And even things like traffic or weather, or these other types of things that can completely throw a day off. He can bring order out of it. Somehow.
But then you start recognizing the order.
Well, you do, and then you're going to go, oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But what happens is you're calmer, right? Things are a little more level, a little more peaceful, and because now it's his day. I just gave him the day. It's his day. And I know a rule that I've followed for so many years is that I'm a breakfast person. So I will have my cereal and I'll have my bacon or my eggs, whatever it is, I'll have breakfast. But I cannot feed my body before I feed my soul.
I know when I was even working, like reading through this book and there was another book that I was really leaning into for this series. And one of the things that kept coming up is like, are we reaching for this before we reach for this? Right. And it's like, if we are, there's something off alignment, right? Sometimes it's like we're giving our first to what? The false news that social media is feeding us because we've liked a bunch of things and they've just feed. It's kind of, I think it was Comer that said in there, it's like social media is like waking up and everybody getting a different newspaper on their front step. The newspaper is designed for you. It doesn't matter if it's real or false news. It's just like whatever you want to hear. Imagine when newspapers used to show up on your front step. It's like that's what's happening right now, and we're all believing this. It's like, well, if our news is from this and not from this, then we've got some things out of alignment. But when you said is like when we give it to God, what I find is that I'm much more aware of God being active in my life. Like it still might be chaos and it might start raining when I'm pouring concrete or, but you're that much more grateful when you get that burst of sunlight and be like, I can do it right now, right? And it's like you're much more aware of like, oh God, you're lining this up. And you might say it's silly or not, but it's like, I got a green light instead of red light and you're kind of like, thank you, Jesus, for giving me a red light. Now we're way more grateful in those moments.
And so now those are gifts rather than interruptions.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I've seen. It's their gifts.
Changes.
Totally.
That's all right.
Yeah. I think we probably picked it up, but go ahead, Lois.
Well, I am a very early morning person, so I like to be to work by like 6:30.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Good for you.
Head shakes.
But then I'm done early, so I like to be home by about 1:30. But what I do is, because my drive takes me about 25 minutes,
Yeah.
I do not put the radio on, and that's my time to kind of reflect, get ready for the day, pray. And then when I get home at about 1:30, no one's in my house, and I sit in my chair for at least an hour and just sit there in silence.
Wow.
And that's how I kind of cope, because then a lot of times all my grandchildren show up and I'm babysitting or whatever right after that. So, but I always make sure that I take my time in the afternoon before anyone can disrupt me.
Yeah.
So
And that's a rhythm that you found that's worked for you.
that works for me, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my time of silence.
Yeah, and you were even saying, like, before we started chatting on cameras, I was like, this is, like, the busiest time you've ever been at work. But you're still finding that, like, that silent, solitude moment still very important for your life.
Yeah, and what I've been doing, because we are so busy, I still come home at my 1:30. I have my silence, and then I go back to the office in the evening for a few hours.
Yeah.
So, but I still need my time in the afternoon. So, yeah.
And that shows, like, even just knowing you, how much I know you, like, for 3 years, I guess, although sort of knew you before. But when you walk into a room, you can just tell when somebody has spent time with God or has spent time and isn't scatterbrained. Like, there's a focus that you carry that even, like, I notice when you walk into a room. So that's
so good.
Yeah, I just want to encourage you in that.
Thank you.
So good.
Thank you.
Jackson, you're the last one to talk. Let's start there and let's work around the room for a moment. We talked about three disciplines. There's more disciplines than that, but we started off with silence and solitude. We moved to the Sabbath, and then it was like simplifying, or there was another word we used on it. Simplifying. I'll think about it like right in the middle when you speak. What's one out of those three that maybe even before or during this series that you're kind of like, that one has probably impacted you the most? Which one out of those three have you been impacted by, you feel? I know that all three of them, because I know that we've had other conversations, and like I said, you've helped me work through some of this stuff personally. But
I think a Sabbath has been a really big one over like the past year and a half or so. But right now I'm sort of moving, God is really highlighting simplifying to me and simplifying my time throughout the rest of the week. I felt like Sabbath was sort of like a jumping board for simplifying like the rest of my life. For me, a big one that was highlighted was possessions, just because we live in such a consumeristic society, and I always thought that I was pretty good. Like, I didn't just buy whatever I wanted and all that, but just I'm noticing that as I clear space and I allow for empty space even in my closet, and I'm just thinking about more than this moment in time. Like, if you think back even 100 or so years ago, everybody had a wardrobe, and it was so much smaller. And so when I look in my closet and I see all that empty space from the clothes I threw out, I don't know, it doesn't feel quite as bad because I'm realizing, no, this is actually a normal and okay amount of clothes to have.
Yeah.
That closet is a picture of culture. It's not a picture of what's necessarily right. So simplifying. What else have I simplified? Oh, I have lots of plants. And even just, it sounds so stupid, but that's just a hobby. You apply it to your passion or your hobby or whatever you do. But I just like Jay was saying earlier, just being intentional about, actually thinking about why I have each one. It sounds so stupid, but going through them and being like, does this spark joy?
Yeah.
But actually.
Yeah, totally. But it's being cognizant of like, the reason of having it. Are you just getting it just to be like, oh, well, I think I want it. And you get it home, it's like,
yeah.
Weren't you? This
What's
is
on
the funny
sale?
story. It's like, didn't you go through IKEA? What you were saying? Tell us the story. Tell us the story.
So, like Jackson, simplifying has been like on my mind the last month or so. And it started off with, cleaning out my closet, giving away things. But as I'm cleaning out things, I'm now looking that there's so much of empty space now. So when I went to IKEA the other day, I went for one thing. And it ended up being like an armful of like useless things that honestly I did not need. I bought them all, got into the car, driving away, and I guess God was like, do you really need all of these things? You just cleaned out stuff. You don't need to take all of this home. So I'm like, okay, I feel really bad, made a U-turn, went back to the store, and gave them all back. I mean, it's great. I do feel like I felt better.
Yeah.
I felt lighter because I wasn't carrying things home with me. And I guess like that kind of does what simplifying does. You don't have that weight.
Yeah. And it's not about like, it's wrong to bring stuff home.
Yes.
It's not like this legalistic, like right or wrong. It's just like, now we're more intentional about like, well, do I need it? Like,
Yes.
and it creates room. It's like, I know that you like a neat home, but when our home is not neat because of craziness that happens, which is often right now, not by choice, but it's kind of like, I'm more calm when things are neat. No, not everybody feels like that, but it's kind of like maybe the same thing. If we decluttered our physical lives a little bit, maybe our souls would declutter a little bit as well.
I just
Yeah, but the thing, sorry.
Nope.
Oh.
That's
Well,
a
no, I
very
was just
Canadian
gonna
thing. So if
make a
anybody's
comment
watching
about-
from not in Canada, everybody says sorry. So
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. But what I like about your story is how long it took for you to obey the prompting of the Spirit.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was
was quick.
right now.
Yeah.
Like that tells you something.
yeah.
Thanks. That encourages me too.
Right on.
Jay, what like out of those three, which one?
I would have to say for me, the idea of Sabbath, it was really good to have that brought back up and to go over that again. I grew up, like I said earlier, I grew up down south in rural Nebraska. So we were joking before about how it's like 20 years behind the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And the idea of Sundays, you don't go anywhere. Your church is all you do. That's it. But taking a look at Sabbath more biblically, it's not just about like going to church, but it's about finding that rest.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it necessarily always needs to be a whole day. I know that sometimes like commitments in the evening after work and all of that gets backed up with chores that have to be done over the weekend, and then we're out running errands all weekend. And I'll look at Kyra sometimes and just say, I need 2 nights off in a row that I can sit on the couch and watch my TV shows and just completely not have to do anything.
Yeah.
And for a while I felt guilty about that because I was saying no to things in order to make that time. But now I realize that, and I know that's maybe not God focused, but just the human element there of needing that rest. God had to take rest. We have to take rest, and being intentional about it, wherever it is that you find that joy, that's how you can recharge. And the times that I don't do that, it doesn't end well.
Yeah, the Sabbath is kind of like, and these are all new concepts I'm learning. I think it's just like sort of refocusing and reshaping some things. It's like, what can I do for 24 hours that would fill my life with joy and gratitude? And then it's like not not living from a place to get rest, but rest driving my living, right? It's kind of like I'm not living for rest, I'm living from rest. And that's such it's just turning on his head instead of being like, oh, I need a Sabbath. My week was so tiring. Well, I'm actually going to rest so my week is more fulfilling in the future, yeah. How about for you, Kyra?
For me, I think the biggest one has been simplify. And in terms, like at the start of COVID, I saw it manifest in terms of like material things. I purged several rooms out of the house, and we took like a carload of stuff to the thrift store as soon as that opened. But the last probably month or so, it's manifested more in simplifying media. And so what I mean by that is like I'm purging who I let speak into my life, who I follow, who I listen to, and just because there is a lot of negativity going right now. Yeah. And it's overwhelming and it's depressing. And so like in order to not sit down to prayer time and be like, God, what's wrong with the world every time, I have to like I'm muting things, I'm pausing things and finding that when I'm coming to like listen to God, I'm turning more to him as that first resource and that first voice I want to hear on a topic. And it's hard. Like, because when things get quiet, I do reach for my phone. I work on the computer all day, so when I have a coffee break, I pull open Facebook, I pull open Instagram, and it's in your face. Yeah. And so simplifying, like, for me has been like, okay, I need to unplug. Like, sometimes I can't physically, I'm working on it. Like, I'm working on unplugging and leaving the phone in another room. I've done that for a bit, but just cutting down what I let speak into my life and prioritizing what so voices I let have that say. So
that's it's not material. It's like that's so good, Kyra.
It's a different way of looking at it, because like material simplification, it's great. It's so good for my mind when I have a clean house, but when I can clean my mind, like that really helps. And just cut out some of the noise. So that's for me the biggest thing through this season.
That's a harder work though. Right? It's really easy to pack up some things that we haven't used for a while. But when there's a lot of noise, turning that off. But that's amazing. So good.
Vern?
Well, I think, I love that.
So good.
But I think if you follow that through, and in my life, that is something I've been doing as well. It's like shutting off the news. Yeah. All of a sudden, I hear the Lord speaking. Right? And that clutter is gone. That all that stuff, and it's like a toxin that eats at your soul, right? And so I hear him. And we just had a situation a couple nights ago. We've got dear family friends that their second oldest boy is dying, and he's very shortly, they figure maybe another week or so. And so as I was talking to him and to the parents of this guy, I heard the Lord speak things that I needed to say to them to encourage them. And so actually Jesus spoke through me to them, but the vessel was ready. Because I had done those types of things and made a huge difference in someone's life.
Which is like what we talked about last week, is like having the opportunity to recognize where to love somebody, right? It's like once we slow down, once we simplify, all of a sudden we're like, wait, no, when I'm slowing, I'm going at the pace of love. Well, we'll come back to that one, but it's like now because of something that you implemented, gave you the opportunity not to miss that opportunity to love, which is amazing.
Because I think that the default speed, default audio level is so much louder in the world than we are meant to actually absorb, right? So like when we're detoxing, or when we're like aware that the noise is so loud, when we're aware that the speed is so fast, and that's not normal, that's not how we were actually created to operate, turning off those voices, the noise, the whatever, the negativity, bringing down the speed, like he's talking no matter what. Like the Bible talks about the whisper, and right? So like I know he can get our attention however he wants to, but sometimes he speaks in a whisper and we literally have to just tune our ear to hear it. And it takes intentional turning off, slowing down, like setting aside to actually hear it. So yeah, just hearing both of what you guys have done to allow that to be the right sound that you have in your ears, the right, it just reminds me more and more, like we have to be aware of what our default is in the world and what we need to be tuning to as believers, as followers of Christ.
Because the Holy Spirit, more often than not, to me, whispers. So he's not going to shout above lots of the noise. So if we actually want to get to hear his voice, we might have to quiet ourselves. Like I think it's Elijah or Elisha stood at the mouth of the cave, right? It's like not in the fire, not in the wind, not in the storm. What was it? It's a quiet whisper. I'm sure it had to be really, really quiet for the quiet. And you pull the cloak over his head, like, speak, Lord, right? It's like, it's a quiet whisper. How about for you, Lois? Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, one thing that we kind of take for granted is that listening, like, it doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
It is hard to sit and listen. Like, you have to turn off your brain, you have to turn on your ears, and that's not something we're very good at anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm the first to admit I'm bad at listening, and it's an action. It is like a physical activity where you have to like flip a switch in your brain and like make that conscious decision that you are going to listen, you are going to pick up what's being said, not just like filter it through your head, but like actually take it in.
And it's a conscious, like it's not just like, oh well, I'm going to listen now. It's like I need who
it's
turned the switch back on? I'm not listening anymore, right? It's like
it's not a passive activity at all. Like it is active.
Yeah, wow. Listening is an active. Wow, that's good. Lois, out of the three, what's...
Well, not simplifying because I'm such a minimalist anyway.
Okay,
so
that was the word that I was looking for.
Yeah,
minimalist. Yeah,
and
yeah.
He makes up for all the clutter in the basement. He's not allowed on the top
all the
floor.
car parts laying around, the big
top
screen
floor at all.
TVs.
Yeah. So, probably the Sabbath as well. Vern and I kind of have this policy that Friday nights, doesn't matter who asks us to do what, the answer will be no. We just need to rest, right?
Yeah.
Kids want to hang out, whatever, grandkids, the answer is just no. But we've been...
Period. No with a period. Remember you were saying no can be a sentence.
But we've been finding even probably Sunday afternoons, we've been being a little more intentional about just resting. Yeah. And you know, for him, it might be getting on his motorbike and going for a ride. That's rest for him, right?
Yeah.
Me, it might be just reading a book or whatever.
Sure.
I just wanted to relate.
Sometimes you kick me out of the house.
I do the same. Go and ride. Your bike is calling you. Leave.
Okay.
I tend to be a bit of a person, though, that I kind of get focused and I'm in a hurry, and if something's off to this side, I'm not going to stop, right? He's the opposite. But we were pastoring in a little town about 2 hours east of Edmonton. This was a long time ago, like about 22 years ago. And I had come into the city, and I had driven by this lady's house that I knew. And I really felt the Lord saying to me, stop and talk to her. And I didn't, because I was so focused to get back home to the kids and stuff. And she actually died 2 weeks later. And I went to her funeral, and the guilt that I felt from not stopping, and it's like, that has stuck with me, and that is something that I will never, ever do again. But just to encourage you that if God is telling you to do something like that, do it.
Yeah.
Don't make the busyness of life and the hurriness just, take priorities. So, yeah.
It's kind of like, it's even if you take that and put it to like a life thing, it's not about where you're going to end up. It's not about the goal. It's about the formation along the way. It's about we use often that we value process. It's like there's no progress without process. It's not just about getting somewhere. It's about the journey on the way. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Lois. How about yourself? Out of the three?
I think the one that's made the most impact in my life has been silence and solitude. Growing up, obviously, my grandparents and my parents have always made it clear that time spent with Jesus is time never wasted.
Wow. Yeah.
And my mom had said this to me when I was in the middle of, final exams, and I didn't want to go to church that day. And I was just like, no, I don't want to go to church. I don't have time. I got so much to catch up on. And my mom was like, nope, time spent with Jesus is time never wasted. And I've kind of carried that with me. But if I'm going to be honest, even though I know in the back of my mind it's theoretically I know that it's true, practically have I been doing it yes, I know I pray and I read my Bible, but I find silence and solitude takes a little bit more time than just the 15 minutes that you would spend, right? And this isolation part, I'm not gonna lie, maybe I know it's been busier for you guys, but it's been the exact opposite for me, because I volunteer during the week, and I go hang out and see my friends on the weekend, so it's just every single day is I have things to do. So I was I know at the back of my mind, I should slow down, I should spend more time, but it's just, have I been doing that? No. So when, the whole world basically shut down, I was just oh, this is 2 weeks of all this time. So, the first thing that God was just guess you can spend more time with me now. So
wow, yeah.
I was just oh, okay. But it's been awesome though, just learning so much more about Jesus and being more intentional with that silence and solitude. Is spending more time with God. And when you do that, how he reveals his heart to you is so, I'm blown away. And not just that, but he puts these opportunities in place for you to share then with other people. Because I work in a school, and not a lot of the other teachers are not Christians. They do know that I believe in Jesus and I go to church. And it was so funny because during this isolation, I thought, I've talked more about Jesus with my coworkers than the 5 years that I've spent in that school. And so it's interesting because I don't go and talk to them about it. They're it just randomly comes up in that conversation. And I was just whoa. And I feel spending time with Jesus has allowed me to give him a better response.
Wow.
than I normally would. So it's been interesting, and I love it. And definitely something that I'm going to take away from all of this isolation thing is the world's not going to end if I slow down.
Wow.
and if I stop, and
it's still going to continue to rotate.
Yes. Yeah. And it does not revolve around me doing things.
Wow.
Things can wait.
That's even a word to us as Christians is this. It's not about doing, it's about being. And I think I said something in one of the first messages, God's more about us as human beings, not as human doings. And I'm I don't even think I had written in my notes. It was just it came up, and I'm shouting myself down, and as I'm saying, I was that's quotable right there, right? It's but it's so true. When you were speaking, it was so interesting to be isn't it amazing that we spend time with Jesus, and he does all the evangelism work. And sometimes we try to go out and evangelize, tell people your story. Well, guess what? If we spend time with Jesus and we're ready in season or out of season, guess what? Right. People will come knocking on your classroom door and say, hey, Sharon, I was wondering, right? Jesus will bring opportunities for us to tell our stories when we actually spend time in silence and solitude. The one that I've been really trying to lean into, and Shauna-Lee is still helping me, and I've even asked my 7-year-old daughter to hold me accountable, which I don't love, because
she reminds
me often is the Sabbath, but the Sabbath is making the rest of my week slow down. So I'm finding not only is my Sabbath is Friday afternoon at about dinner time at about 5 to 5. I try to turn my cell phone off. I'm not good at it yet, but I'll get another chance every Friday evening. And that's one thing about the Sabbath, you get a chance. We don't need to give up on these things. Like you're saying, listening is an active thing. Well, it's not let's try to listen, it didn't work. Well, let's try again. We can't just give up on some of these things that we've learned in this season. We've got to keep moving forward in them.
But it's interesting. Oh, were you going? Sorry.
Nope. That's okay. You and Jackson are cutting each other off today, but that's okay.
This Sabbath, but we know about it.
Yeah.
Right? You told us all, right? And so the other day, Lois said, well, you can't call him today. It's his Sabbath.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm kind of helping you by not,
Sure. Yeah.
I'm kind of
You're
sensitive to that.
Yeah, well, you're being an armor bearer in some ways. Like, it's kind of,
Yes.
right? Like, to make it spiritual, it's like, hey, no, this can wait. Now, there's some stuff that
That's right.
sometimes, again, like,
but if your
Jesus
phone's
and his
off-
disciples had to eat kind of thing. It's like, there's some things that can be interrupted for it. The Sabbath is not, or the man is not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath
Yeah.
is made for the man. Or for man, not for the man.
Sorry, Jackson.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just go back to sort of what you were saying before. One thing that has helped me in continuing to try for these disciplines, because that's what they are, they're disciplines, but it's not feeling shame about when I don't get them perfectly, because I'm realizing more and more how much of a
Yeah, because
perfectionist I am.
Satan will try to move
Yeah.
in there and be like, well, why are you really trying this? You suck at it anyway.
Yeah, but like when I do a Sabbath and I'm like, by noon I'm on my phone and I'm like, ugh. But it's just the trying every time. And even when I mess up, it's better than if I didn't try at all. It's like the heart work that's going on in that time and realizing how dependent we are on things. It's not, if you did it perfectly the first time, it wouldn't have a use.
And we're meant to model these things after what Jesus did, right? So the moment that we take it and it becomes shameful because
Yeah.
we didn't do it right, or we
Yeah.
didn't do
That
it
ain't
long
Jesus.
enough, no, that becomes religion.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And that's not what it's about, right? So like out of relationship with Jesus, stepping into that and giving it a go the next week, right?
So we're going to close this down because we could talk all day, and it's great. And I know that this has been valuable to so many people that are watching, and we could probably have everybody that's watching in one of these like living room sessions. But what's one of the three that you've been trying to implement? I know that this has been sort of a topic that's been rolling around in our house for probably a year.
Well, Sabbath as a family has been something that we've
Yeah.
been working on. But I think like that's been impactful, and it will still continue to be something that is ongoing and we're learning. But I think the one personally that I am impacted and challenged most by is silence. So hearing you say that you have that as a regular routine, I'm like, oh my heavens.
Can I be like you, please?
Well, yes and no, because I'll be honest, I think deeply. So like I can get in my head real quick. So about anything, literally anything. So like a conversation we might have had today, I can think over and over about what I said and how it might have been perceived, and then anxiety, and then a trigger, all the things. So when I get in a place of silence, what happens is there's no noise, except for the noise in my head. So as soon as that turns on, it's like, okay, now I have to battle that. But when I'm able to kind of shut that down and give that to Jesus, I'm shutting down the noise in my head and allow him to speak truth into the areas that's deep in me that needs some work. So I know that's where I need to go more often, more regularly, but it's also a scary place to go, right? Because I don't go there very often. It's busy, and there's kids, and they're loud, and there's husband, and he's loud. No, just kidding. Life is loud. Life is busy. But shutting that down into a place of like actual silence, not just like house silence, like your head silence, and then allowing the Holy Spirit. It's hard. Yeah. So I've been finding that to be challenging, but also really great because he meets me in that place that I haven't allowed myself to go. Yeah. Right? So I think that's when he gets into the inner corners of your heart, not just like the areas that you let the light shine. It's like all those, So I think that's the one for me right now.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for just taking some time out of your day. And again, we could chat more and more and more. And this is an ongoing thing of slowing down. I hope that, the 6 weeks that we've spent in it, that we can continue to challenge each other, to ask people how, people that are watching, ask us, hey, how's your Sabbath going? We're going to have to keep going. Jackson, as Shauna-Lee was just speaking, and I was thinking about how we're closing this thing, I just know that you've been so impactful in my life in helping me walk through and understand some of this stuff as we've biked and as we've hung out. I'm just wondering if you could just pray a quick prayer of like blessing and encouragement over our church family as they're watching today. Could you do that for us? Go for it.
God, we just welcome you here. We just quiet the noise in our heads as we just come before you, God. We ask that you would just bring the priority of why we're doing all of these disciplines into mind. Help that to be the focus. Pray that you give courage to people who are watching. Give courage to me, God, to continue following you in the tangible steps you want us to take, God. But help us to never lose focus of you. We're doing this for you, not to earn your affection or earn righteousness, God. We're doing this because you have abundance for us. And we trust that what you're saying is true, even if we can't feel it. So I pray that you would put this whole message of simplicity and Sabbath and silence on people's hearts, God, and make it burn in their hearts, Jesus, that it's a desire they have to follow you and to see the benefits of following you and get to know you better. So, I just pray that blessing over people, that they would just open their hearts to you and feel a desire. We just thank you that you're doing this in the earth right now. We thank you that you're taking what was meant for harm and you're turning it into good, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Corrie ten Boom said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you hurry. They both separate us from God. And you know what? Sometimes we're good at like recognizing what's sin and what's not sin, but we're probably not so good at recognizing that hurry can creep in. And the verse that we've started this series off with, I thought it would be good to close it down. It says, come to me, all who are tired from carrying heavy loads. I think that was written 2,000 years ago, but it's so impactful for today. So many people are carrying heavy loads that we honestly don't need to be carrying ourselves. And I will give you rest. Place my yoke over your shoulders and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble. Then you will find rest for yourselves. I think many of us need rest, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It doesn't say he's removing a yoke. It doesn't say he's removing a burden, but he's saying he's coming alongside and making it light and making it easier. And a way to do that is by slowing down. Thanks so much for tuning in to our series for Slow Down Silly. I hope that this was super impactful because I know it was for us. I think I could speak for all of us. Discovery Church, have an amazing day. We love you so much. Hey, Discovery fam, thanks for just taking some extra time to lean in and listen. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, it was awesome. And even though it was a little bit of a different conversation, just being able to talk through some of the things that we've been learning and walking through as we dive into what it is to follow the life of Jesus, especially in the disciplines of slowing down.
Slowing down. We cannot follow the life of Jesus without being intentional to slow down. And maybe something that was said or done or throughout the series you've been contemplating, do you make this decision, this next step to give your life to Christ? And today you're like, man, there's something that was said or done, or there's this feeling in your spirit that is like, I need to make this next step to follow Jesus. Today could be your day. It doesn't need to be this huge miraculous thing, even though it is a miraculous thing, is salvation from us coming from a spiritual death to a spiritual life. But literally all you need to do is acknowledge that Jesus is the Son of God, that he died for our imperfections. He rose 3 days later, and that we're in need of a Savior and we accept him. And so I just welcome you to do that. And today, welcome to the family. Welcome to Christianity is the best decision that you could ever make. And if you made that decision today, what can we do?
We can click on the QR code that's about to pop up on the screen.
Scan the QR code.
Scan it.
Or click the link that's going to pop up in the comment section. And that will just give us the ability to be able to pray for you, to get to know you a little bit better.
We'll send you a Bible.
Be able to send you a Bible if you don't have one. Outside of that, Discovery Church, this series, honestly, has probably been the most impactful series since the launch of Discovery Church in my life. We've chatted to a few other people and are kind of like, man, this is really changing the way that I approach my weeks. And so as we close out this series, we got 3 words: slow
down,
silly.